r/ask Reddit. What are some very creepy facts? Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. They discovered that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose in order to avoid necrophilia at the embalmers. Well, that escalated quickly. After getting stung by a cone snail, you don't feel the sting for a little bit. There is no antivenin and it can be lethal. Treatment is basically keeping the victim alive until the venom wears off. Cone snails are pretty freaky. Some of the most deadly ones can kill you in 30 minutes or less after they sting you. Their shells are super pretty too, so any beachcomber should be aware of these creatures and know how to pick up a shell carefully just in case someone might still be inside. One reason that crows and ravens are associated with death is because they would often follow armies as they marched to battle. Being both carrion birds and extremely intelligent, they realized that a large group of armed men marching on one direction meant that there would be a tasty meal of corpses to eat soon afterwards. Blobfish in its natural habitat looks like a normal fish, but it lives so deep underwater that it doesn't use a normal gas bladder to keep itself balanced. Instead, it has a spongy skin that is slightly less dense than water, which becomes damaged and bloated when fishermen bring it up too quickly. It's not really the ugliest fish. It has just experienced something worse than one of us being thrown into outer space. Between sea level and space, there's 1 atmospheric pressure of difference. Between sea level and 2,000 feet underwater, their upper limit, there's 60 atmospheres of difference. Now I'm sad for the blobfishes. Imagine being taken 5,000 miles under the ocean, having your skull be crushed by the immense pressure, then being called the ugliest mother ducker alive. If you begin to display symptoms of rabies, you will go crazy and die. There's no cure. Your brain will slowly melt until you're dead. The second you get bitten by anything, you should literally speed to the hospital. Serial killer Richard Chase took any unlocked door as an invitation to come inside. This is the example I use every time my husband keeps the door unlocked. Crocodiles can gallop like a horse. I don't like knowing this, so I am cursing you people with this knowledge as well. Fortunately, alligators cannot. So that's how you tell them apart. Yeah, but now I'm confused how to tell a horse and crocodile apart. Men who are hanged get a death erection, known as rigor erectus. Pretty awkward for the family, I assume. This is the one time I'd advocate using hung instead of hanged. There's a parasite that enters a fish's mouth, eats the tongue and replaces itself as the fish's new tongue. As a fish, there isn't a cure and it sucks. I keep saying stuff I don't mean to say. A black mamba is the fastest snake, which can slither at a speed of 12.5 miles an hour, 20 km/h. They have neurotoxins which are fast acting. The venom shuts down the nervous system and paralyzes the victim. Its venom is able to kill 10 people and it repeatedly bites. To add on to this, there is an almost 100% kill rate and can kill in 20 minutes. When I went on a safari, the guide had no problem driving by the family of lions, cougars, crazy hippos, everything else we saw. However, when he spotted a black mamba, this incredible fear came over his face. The snake was right in the middle of the dirt road and he wouldn't even drive past it. We were in one of those open Jeep safari things. The guide was so frightened that he just zoomed in reverse and got away so quickly. He said they can jump up in the car and do all kinds of crazy things. I don't know if that's true, but I know that he was genuinely afraid and we got out of that area so fast. Tarantulas can swim. I'm afraid to Google this. I just did. Looked pretty cool. Ducker was huge. When creating the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland, they couldn't create skeletons that looked realistic enough, so they used real human skeletons. They've since removed all of them except one. The skull that's over the bed is real. My favorite ride. Ducks become cannibals due to boredom. Of all ducking reasons, they can only be stopped by cutting off their mouths. Don't duck with ducks. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. The American cockroach and German cockroach are more likely to bite humans than other species. Pretty sure Australian cockroaches do something equally creepy, but as an Australian who plans to sleep at some point in the future, I'm not going to Google it. There are many studies that show they don't like human contact and will clean themselves rigorously if they touch us. Our skin is very oily and can suffocate the breathing holes in their carapace. There was a speech made for Apollo 11 if they were to die on the moon. Side fact, if it were to happen, people would look up at the moon knowing that that crew died there, and their bodies would rest there till the end of time. Not forgetting that the ocean is somewhat like this. Many people died there too, at the very depths of the sea. Also, their bodies would not have decomposed because the moon has no oxygen. Instead they would become mummies. It's quite common after you die to burp a lot as you have more gas buildup. Dead bodies can also sit up on their own sometimes. Also, if a pregnant lady dies, sometimes the gas buildup in the body as it decomposes forcefully pushes the baby out. Most people smell different when they're awake. Mount Everest is covered in frozen corpses because removing them is very unsafe and time consuming. They are easily viewed from the climbing routes and some are used as trail markers. What's odd is that although the bodies are prominent, in some cases there is no consensus on their identity. Like over the years, 2 different people with a similar description didn't return from their Everest climb, and we know the body is probably one of them, but not sure which. Or is it more creepy that some of the bodies are indeed identified, and somewhere out there is a family who knows full well that their loved one's remains are a landmark on the world's most famous mountain? Imagine being totally aware of someone performing CPR but you physically can't move or respond. Well, that's what happens when you get bitten by a blue-ringed octopus. You have approx 6 minutes between being bitten and someone starting CPR to keep your heart and lungs functioning to ensure you survive, all whilst being totally aware of what is happening to you. Neurotoxins are fun. The really creepy thing about this is one story of a guy who got stung, got CPR performed on him and survived, but went blind because he was lying on his back, eyes open, unable to blink because of the paralysis, staring into the sun. Imagine lying there, unable to move, unable to communicate, the sun slowly burning out your eyes and you can't shut them. There are upwards of 300 active serial killers in the world. Seems low honestly. 300 is a lot, but out of 8 billion, famous last words though, known to be active. Think about how many people go missing and are never found. Hearing is the last thing to go after you die. You just might hear the paramedics and firefighters call off CPR. You know, that's actually kinda nice. You know that if ever you have someone dying in your arms, they're hearing you as they die. You know comforting them is working. Unless they have hearing damage. Man, that sucks. You might know that you are too far gone, and that you will die. There's a spider that gives you a 3H long boner. Before you die from it, bite at it. The boner it gives you is very painful. If it bites you, you might as well dong slap it into next week. Die Hard. They used real corpses in the 1982 film Poltergeist for the ending pool scene. The actress did not know until after the scene was filmed. Not just Poltergeist, but up until the last few decades, actual skeletons and bodies were used in Hollywood productions simply because it was cheaper than hiring prop guys to do it. Any old movie you watch, chances are the skeletons are real because you could saunter into any old medical supply store and buy a whole disused skeleton from a university medical department for a reasonable price. There are more creatures in your mouth than there are people on Earth. The human body can be drained of blood in 8.6 seconds given adequate vacuuming systems. Not everyone can afford a Dyson. In the Czech Republic, there is a church called the Sedlec Ossuary that has decorations made entirely of human bones. This happened because there were too many people in the cemetery to bury everyone, and the church leaders claimed that if their bones became part of the church, it only made them closer to God. Nice propaganda spin there, guys. Eventually there will be more dead people on Facebook than alive. Wow, thanks for the award. You're more likely to be murdered by someone you know than a stranger. If you stifle a sneeze, there's a chance you can damage organs in your head, including eye blood vessels, rupturing your eardrums, and possibly rupture a brain aneurysm. which means there's a small chance stifling a sneeze can kill you. Better to be the loud ass with the sneeze that can be heard around the world than a dead loud ass cause someone told you to stifle that sneeze. Your brain can play tricks on you to make you see monsters in the mirror, called the Troxler effect. The Troxler effect is an optical illusion that affects how you perceive things, both visually and mentally. The smell of a freshly cut lawn is actually a chemical distress signal released from the grass as it's cut. You're smelling the souls and screaming of the innocent. Our graves will be reused for someone else unless we are memorable, which in the 99% of the time we won't be, so we better start thinking of badass ways we can be buried. If we're cremated, then forget about being remembered past one generation unless you name a park or building after yourself. John Harvey Kellogg was a prude, so he and his brother invented cornflakes and recommend cutting your foreskin to stop males from wanking. For females, he suggested rubbing carbolic acid on the clitoris, but fortunately that didn't catch on in the West. The US has lost 6 nuclear warheads in total. That very distinct vacuum smell, like that smell from the content you vacuumed up, comes from dead skin cells. The reason dogs like squeaky toys is because the squeak reminds them of small animals dying. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.